Jim Coyle with you as always. Dustin Schutte as well. Joined now by Kyler Staley. Kyler, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Cannot complain. Just watching everybody else do that. The IU fans not happy today after Indiana not getting a commitment from Chris Ledlum, which don't know that it was that shocking. I don't know that they had a 50% shot at it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it is shocking to a little extent because they went all in on him pretty much. But Lidlum, he chose Tennessee. He obviously saw a better fit there for him. Whatever they were preaching, he bought into. So he's going there. So now Indiana, there's a lot of question marks there. What's Indiana going to do? When they try to round out that front court, obviously Jalen Deloach is still a potential option there, but he's a much different player than what Ledlum would bring. He's still a little bit of a work in progress, and he still needs to tap into a next level when it comes to that. But when it comes down to it, Indiana needs guards. They need wings really, really bad right now. I think Indiana would be fine if they can't find another front court player with inserting, Caleb Banks to play that, hybrid 3, hybrid 4 in certain situations. But, they got to go after shooters. They got to go after wings. They got to find the production that Miller Kopp had last year when it comes to shooting from behind the arc. Don't connect, although unlikely. It's still another guy that Indiana, should be recruiting hard. And then you throw in other names like Cormac Ryan from Notre Dame, had his best season last year. There's still ties there with him. He can create off the dribble. He can, create, for himself, can create perimeter shots. And then you look at Florida State transfer Matthew Cleveland, not really a great fit for Indiana, but is a very talented player. And he would provide a lot of athleticism, around the wing. But Indiana still got options, but they've really got to buy in. They really got to try to figure out how they're going to fill those scholarship pieces.
There seems to be quite a. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say there seems to be. There seems to be a lot of concern after not getting Chris Ledlum about how this team is recruiting, how they're.
But there's always concern after they don't get something.
I know.
Nothing new.
I'm asking Kyler, what is there right now to still be positive about in terms of in Indiana, in terms of the transfer portal and the recruiting trail right now, because just to ease some of the tension that might be out there after whiffing on Chris Ledlum.
I mean, you obviously, I feel like it's been kind of overlooked. Indiana still got Kello Ware. They still got that. That's still a pretty good front court piece right there. He was probably the top 2 or 3, transfer option out there. So Indiana was able to land him, and they got a major front court piece. And they got Peyton Sparks as well, who's going to be really, really good for them off the bench. But, I mean, you throw in the positives of you got Malik Renew back. You've got those guys. You've got, a good, solid core back of guys, the guys that have a lot of potential. And I really like the two guard recruiting class of Ja'Kai Newton and Gabe Cupps. I really do like them. And I especially like Ja'Kai, and I think he's going to come in right away. And he's going to produce for Indiana. But, there is some positive stuff. I see where the negative comes from because you look at 3, open scholarships and you still don't know what exactly is going to happen with Xavier Johnson. It is a little worrisome if you're an IU fan, but I trust what Mike Woodson's putting together. I really do. And I trust his recruiting philosophy. And I think that he's going to hit it pretty hard, for this 2024 class. I think that's going to be the, recruiting class that really breaks through for Indiana once he's able to finalize that and once he's able to start getting guys to commit. But, I mean, it is worrisome. I'm not going to lie, just because, Indiana missed out on Ledlum. But you got to throw in the positives. Everyone just got to relax. There's still a lot of moving pieces with the transfer portal and everything. So you just got to be patient. You got to see what Mike Woodson and his staffs are cooking up right now.
Here's the reason for concern and I get it because these are valid. They're not getting visits. They have all the NIL that any basketball program could want to have. They can offer all the playing time you can imagine. You get to play in the Big Ten. You'd get to play at Indiana. That's just a basket full of things that you can't get at a lot of places. And so that should put Indiana in great shape with a lot of people, and with just that, you should get enough fallout that you fill up nicely, and that's just not happening.
Yeah, I mean, I get it from an NIL perspective. Indiana's got a lot of, a lot of money when it comes to that. They've got a lot of opportunity to, push some cash flow, to these guys and everything. But at the same time, players, they're going to go to places, money's great and everything, but they're also going to go to places where they see it fit. A lot of these guys maybe don't see a fit when it comes to Indiana.
Then that's an even bigger question, and that's the bigger question. Why? Why are so many players not finding the fit at Indiana? And that is the question now. Why is that the problem?
I wish I had the answer for that. I really do. Obviously, I can't be in these players' minds and everything, but it's you throw tradition outside. I overheard Dustin talk about it a little bit earlier. These kids, you look at it like, oh, it's Indiana basketball. You got to come here. There's so much tradition here, but a lot of these kids don't care about tradition anymore, and I agree with that. They're going to go to some place. They're going to go where there's money, and then they're going to go where they feel like they can win. Honestly, if you look at it, the playing in the Big Ten's not a very attractive, thing when you look at it. The Big Ten's not had success in the NCAA tournament. It's pretty embarrassing, over the last 7 years or so, how embarrassing the Big Ten's been in the tournament. And then, Indiana's still in a rebuilding process. They've made strides every year. And, some kids are like, if I go to Indiana right now, even though Mike Woodson's a great coach and he knows what he's talking about, am I going to win right away? Am I going to make am I going to make a lot of money and win? There's a lot of questions there. So you just don't
see. So now we're getting further down to the actual problem. And that's the thing. Now we delved into it, finding that right fit. Now you get down to winning. And if guys are not thinking that they can win in Indiana, that is obviously that's a serious problem. And where's the fix?
Who knows? There's a lot of, you can say a lot of things need to be fixed, but at the end of the day, to go back to kind of tie this all around, players, Indiana's got to really hammer down and try to get visits. I agree with you. They're not getting as many visits as what they need to be getting. They're getting a lot of Zoom calls. They're sending out a lot of feelers and everything. But when it comes specifically to the transfer portal, Indiana's probably only got one, maybe two. Is it two visits, maybe at most, so far? So, a lot of Zooms, but, they got to figure out a way to fill those 3 scholarships, and they got to fill them with the right pieces. They can't just, give a scholarship to a guy just to fill a scholarship. They got to provide wings. They got to maybe figure out another front court rotation. I think they really got to turn their attention to Jalen Deloach if they really feel like they need another front court piece. They really got to, pursue him hard. But at the same time, they got to find a wing. They got to find 1 or 2 wings. They got to have guys that can shoot the ball. If Mike Woodson wants to have success in the NCAA tournament, he's got to have those type of guys.
They could have already landed Jalen Deloach. I'll tell you that. If they wanted him, they could have landed him. They, after the canceled visit, the importance was it wavered, it waffled. Let's just say that. Now, because of this opens up that possibility of them having being put in a position where they have to get players, first of all. Although you want and need the pieces that you want and need, sometimes you have to. That just doesn't always work, and that's been the case for Indiana. But that's becoming a perpetual cycle, and if you do not complete the revolution, if you do not complete the puzzle, now you're looking at next year, and you're going to have other pieces out and then you got to put new pieces in. So you're never completing this puzzle. It's like putting a puzzle together, and Indiana just can't get this puzzle quite finished. They just always have a missing piece or two. It seems, it appears.
Yeah, I agree. And especially if you look at last year's roster, a lot of talent on that roster, but I've said this for, the past few months. I've said, when you look at the roster of Indiana, it was a lot of misfit toys, I like to call them, because, you had a lot of pieces and everything, but they just didn't, go together. It was a lot of, you look at, how Indiana ran. It was through Trace Jackson Davis, and Miller Kopp would be standing out there, just clueless on what to do and everything. But, if Mike Woodson really has a vision of he wants to play more guard heavy, more wing heavy, I'm really surprised he hasn't, went after the wings as hard as what he needs to when it comes to the transfer portal. They missed out on Timberlake. They're going to miss out on Dalton Connect, what it seems like. LLS, yes, they missed out on him. He was an interesting, piece, because you didn't know if you wanted to be fully into him or not, because, he's still testing the NBA waters right now. So I still think that they're banking on Xavier Johnson to be back and everything. But, moving forward, if they're okay with, like I said, using Caleb Banks as more of a guy that's going to play a hybrid of a 3 and a 4, they really got to go after some wings now. And then they got to turn their attentions to guys like Cormac Ryan, those type of guys. Or else they're just, they're going to be back to square one, and they're not going to be a great shooting team. So it's going to be a lot of work in progress. But, the coaching staff, I still have a lot of trust in them. I have a lot of faith in them. I think that they're going to figure it out. But, as time goes on, it's going to be a little bit worrisome.
Is there a case of Indiana potentially? And look, I understand some teams live and die with the transfer portal, but is this a situation where you think Indiana maybe got a little bit too dependent on the transfer portal? Because there are no guarantees.
They weren't depending on it. It is what it is. You have holes you have to fill. So I
understand that, but why would you not bring in more recruits?
Because you don't expect them to. You don't know they're leaving. You only know X amount is leaving. When X turns into XY, now you've got to adjust to that, and that's what exactly what happened. So I mean, no one knew Tamar Bates was leaving in the middle of the season. But I'm sure they also thought that they would have an easier chance or an easier run at this. But I don't think that I don't think they got out and after it quick enough. I think they were behind the gun. But again, I'm guessing here. But it just because I you look at all these other programs that were able to fill their needs and how quickly they were able to fill those needs. It's like, what are you doing? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, now, I was just going to add into that, we knew from the start of last year, right before the season started, that the transfer portal for this upcoming season was going to be really important. And Mike Woodson knew that going in. He knew he was going to have a few guys, a few random pieces gone. You knew you were going to have Trace Jackson Davis. You knew you were going to have those seniors gone. So the fact that he hasn't able to confirm that game plan that he has, to really bring it full circle, it is worrisome. I do get it and everything, but at the same time, still a lot of moving pieces in the transfer portal. So they still have time to find a wing, to find guys that they feel can fit there. But you really got to have that game plan, and they really got to execute, moving forward.
Absolutely. I want to make sure I said something earlier that Andy said, and I took it out of context. Yeah, I don't remember what I said, Andy. I'll have to go back and look at that later. And Indiana did get some. It's not like they got the cupboard's empty. They did get Khalil Ware. Patterson was a nice get, and I think that whetted the appetite for others. But also, it brings up another question. They were able to get those guys. You would think that would also make this more attractive to other pieces that they're looking to bring in to fill in those other holes. And apparently that has not been the case yet.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you can't read players' minds, but, with the day and age of NIL and how things are going, players are going to go where the most money is. Indiana does have a good opportunity. They have a lot of suitors when it comes to NIL that can provide a lot of money. But at the same time, they're going to go where they see a good fit, where they think that they're going to have success, and where they think they're going to win. Until Indiana starts proving that they can win at a high level, and the Big Ten in general, I think the transfer portal is going to be very, very hard for, for those type of teams to, really move around. So we'll just see what happens, with Mike Woodson and them, but they got to execute moving forward. That's all I'm going to say.